The starship Aurora glided silently through the dark void, its silver hull reflecting the distant light of 1,000 stars. Inside, Kyle, the human healer, checked his equipment one last time. He had received a distress signal from the planet Zephora, a world far from human space, and something about the message made him uneasy. The signal was clear. The princess Leora had been kidnapped by a rival faction and her life was in immediate danger. Kyle was not a soldier. He was a healer, a medic trained to save lives, not take them. Yet he knew that if he hesitated, Leora might not survive. The people of Zephora depended on someone brave enough to act, and somehow fate had placed that responsibility on him. The planet came into view. From orbit, it looked like a jewel floating in black silk, its oceans a deep violet and its cities shimmering with bioluminescent lights. But as Aurora drew closer, Kale saw the devastation. Smoke rose from burning districts and the ground below shook with the rhythm of explosions. Buildings had collapsed and rivers of molten energy ran through the streets. The attackers had not been subtle. They wanted the world to see their power. Kale took a deep breath, steadying himself. "I'm going down," he whispered, gripping the railing as the shuttle detached from the main ship. He piloted carefully, dodging falling debris and enemy fire. His ship's shields absorbed the brunt of the attacks, but he knew it wouldn't hold forever. The moment he landed, he would be exposed. The shuttle touched down on a plaza, surrounded by crumbling skyscrapers and alien architecture that twisted and spiraled like living vines. He stepped out, scanning the area. Alien civilians ran in panic, their voices high and melodic, calling for help. Kale moved quickly, his healer's instincts taking over. He carried a small kit of portable medical devices, each one capable of stabilizing injuries that would be fatal to others. A group of civilians stumbled toward him, screaming. One had a shattered leg, another a deep burn across the chest. Kale knelt and worked swiftly. His hands glowed faintly as he activated his healing tech, sealing wounds and restoring movement. The aliens watched in awe as the injuries closed before their eyes. Kale's heart raced, but he forced himself to remain calm. Panic was contagious, but calm could save lives. As he treated the last of the civilians, Kale heard a faint, desperate cry. It was human-like in its urgency, but melodic in the alien way only Zypherans could speak. He turned, following the sound, to a partially collapsed building. Through a gap in the rubble, he saw her, Princess Leora. She was trapped under a beam, her silver hair tangled and her skin bruised. Her eyes, a brilliant shade of violet, were wide with fear. "Hold on. I'm coming," Kale shouted. He ran toward her, ducking under falling debris. The structure groaned, threatening to collapse completely, but Kale refused to stop. He reached Leora and pressed his hand against the beam, activating a small anti-gravity device he carried. Slowly, the weight lifted. The princess could move now, but she was too weak to stand. "I'll carry you," Kale said gently. "Can you hold on?" Leora nodded weakly, and he lifted her into his arms. Her warmth was comforting, but he didn't let himself linger. Every second counted. He turned to leave, but a group of enemy mercenaries blocked his path. Their weapons glowed with lethal energy, and they smiled cruelly. Kale's heart pounded. He had no combat training beyond basic self-defense, yet he stood firm. "You don't belong here, human," one of them sneered. Kale's hands moved instinctively. He activated a defensive shield around himself and Leora. The mercenaries fired, but the shield absorbed the blasts. He ran, dodging falling beams and shards of glass, weaving through the ruins like a dancer. Each step was calculated. Hesitation would be fatal. Finally, he reached a narrow alley and activated a small teleportation pad he had carried for emergencies. With a flash of light, they were outside the combat zone, in a quiet street where the smoke was thinner and the air clearer. Kale laid Leora down gently and checked her pulse. Steady. She was alive. Leora opened her eyes slowly. "You saved me," she whispered, her voice weak but full of awe. Kyle nodded. "That's what I do. I heal, I save lives. You're safe now." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Around them, the city was still in chaos, but here, in this small pocket of safety, there was calm. Leora's eyes studied Kale, and he could see the curiosity and relief in them. She had expected a warrior, a soldier perhaps, but here was a human healer, vulnerable and brave in ways she had never seen before. Suddenly, a fleet of royal Zypheran ships appeared overhead. They hovered, scanning the area. Kale recognized the emblem, the royal crest. Leora's family had found them, but as one ship landed, emissaries came down with serious expressions. "Human," one of them said, speaking in the universal translator Cale had worn on his belt. "You have saved Princess Leora's life. By the laws of Zephora, such an act is bound by an ancient pact. The rescuer must enter a formal bond with the one saved, a marriage pact to ensure her protection and loyalty." Kyle froze. He had faced danger, fire, and death, but this was unexpected. "A marriage?" he asked, disbelief coloring his voice. "Yes," the emissary said firmly. "It is tradition. Refusal may bring dishonor and even provoke the enemies who seek her." Leora stirred and looked at Cale, her violet eyes wide. "Cale, you don't have to—" "I will," Cale said before she could protest. His voice was calm, but his mind raced. This was not what he had signed up for, not exactly, but he had promised to protect her, and if this bond ensured her safety, he would accept it. The emissaries gestured, and Kyle and Leora were escorted to the royal palace. As they moved through the streets, the citizens stared. Many whispered, amazed that a human, fragile and strange by Zephoran standards, had entered their city and emerged with the princess alive. Some shook their heads in disbelief. Others whispered of courage they had never seen in their own people. Inside the palace, Leora's father, the alien king, awaited them. His presence was commanding, his eyes sharp and intelligent. Kyle bowed out of respect, and Leora followed with quiet dignity. "You have saved my daughter," the king said, his voice deep and resonant. "For that I owe you gratitude. But you must understand the laws of Zephora. A rescuer of royal blood must be bound in marriage to the one rescued. This ensures loyalty and honor." Kyle swallowed hard. He had never been in a situation like this. He was a healer, not a husband, not a diplomat. Yet he felt a strange sense of duty, not just to the king, but to Leora herself. "As I will honor the bond," he said, "but I do so to protect her, not to claim her as property." The king studied him, then nodded slowly. "A wise answer. You may stay as her protector, and the bond will begin. But know this, the enemies who took her will not rest. Your courage will be tested again." Kyle looked at Leora. She nodded slightly, her trust in him clear. He would not let her down. Together they would face the dangers ahead, not as captor and captive, but as allies. That night, Cale examined Leora's injuries in the privacy of a royal chamber. His hands moved skillfully, applying alien medical techniques combined with human healing technology. Slowly, the bruises faded, the burns healed, and the princess's strength returned. Leora watched him silently, admiration and curiosity mixing in her expression. "You are unlike any human I have known," she said softly. Cale smiled faintly. "And you are unlike any alien I have met. That is why we will make a good team." Outside, the city still burned, and the threat of the rival faction lingered. But in this palace, a human healer and an alien princess began a bond that could change not just their fates, but the future of Zephora itself. Kyle knew one thing clearly. Courage, empathy, and intelligence, human traits often underestimated, were now the kingdom's greatest weapons. And he was ready to wield them, not for glory, but to save lives and inspire hope. For the first time, Cale felt that perhaps humans, though small in number and fragile in form, could stand tall among the stars, and so the human healer began his journey, not just as a savior of life, but as a guardian of a princess bound by tradition and honor, stepping into a world far beyond anything he had known, where every choice could tip the balance between survival and destruction. The palace of Zephora rose like a crystal fortress in the violet night, its spires glowing faintly as if lit from within. The corridors were wide and elegant, carved from a stone that shimmered in soft hues of lavender and silver. Every corner radiated authority and tradition, reminding Cale that he was now in a world unlike his own. As he walked beside Princess Leora, Cale felt the weight of the situation pressing down on him. He had rescued her, yes, but the marriage pact was not a simple promise. It was a commitment to live within Zephora's rules. Rules he barely understood. "Cale," Leora said softly, her voice echoing slightly in the polished hallway. "The court will watch you. Every gesture, every word. It will be measured. Be careful." "I know," Cale replied, keeping his tone calm, though anxiety gnawed at his chest. "I've dealt with emergencies, but this is different." The first council meeting was unlike anything Cale had ever experienced. The palace chamber was massive, with towering pillars etched with alien script that pulsed faintly. Dozens of nobles, advisors, and military leaders filled the seats, their eyes trained on him with a mixture of curiosity, skepticism, and, in some cases, disdain. "You are the human who saved our princess?" asked one council member, her voice melodic yet sharp. "Do you understand our customs? Our laws?" Kale nodded firmly. "I do now, and I will respect them. My first priority is Princess Leora's safety, and then I will do my best to understand and honor Zypheran tradition." Murmurs ran through the room. Humans were known among the stars for their unpredictability. They were small, fragile, and yet, Kale's actions had already shown they were capable of incredible courage. Some nobles frowned. Others leaned forward with interest. Leora spoke then, her voice clear and confident. "He has saved my life. That is what matters most. Let us not judge him by his species alone." The room fell silent. Her words carried authority, and Kale noticed the subtle shift in tone among the council members. He glanced at Leora and saw a flicker of amusement. She was intelligent, sharp, and unafraid to speak her mind, qualities Kale respected. Over the following days, Kale struggled to adapt. The palace routines were strict, and every action seemed to have layers of meaning he could not immediately grasp. Meals were served in ways that seemed ritualistic, with sequences of gestures he had to follow carefully. Even the way he bowed or spoke to Leora required adjustment. Yet Kale approached each challenge as he did any medical emergency, with observation, analysis, and respect. He asked questions, took notes, and learned quickly. His honesty and humility impressed some of the nobles, while others remained suspicious. Leora, for her part, was both patient and challenging. She tested Kale, asking him questions about human culture and his ethics, smiling when his answers were sincere, and frowning when they were uncertain. Kale found himself learning as much from her as she did from him. "You are brave, Kale," Leora said one evening as they walked through the palace gardens. The air was cool, scented with alien flowers that glowed faintly in the dark. "Not just in battle or danger, but in your honesty. You do not pretend to be something you are not." Kale looked at her, studying her violet eyes. "And you are brave in your own way," he said. "Leading a kingdom, trusting a human, those are not small things. I have seen soldiers who would crumble under this pressure." Leora smiled faintly. "Perhaps we are more alike than our worlds would suggest. We both face impossible odds, yet we continue." Their moments of quiet reflection were interrupted when a warning alert sounded. A small enemy reconnaissance unit had been detected near the palace's outer perimeter. Kale grabbed his medical kit, ready to assist, while Leora ran to coordinate the palace defenses. Even in her weakened state, she moved with precision and command. The enemies approached, thinking the palace vulnerable. They had not expected a human to lead and a princess to fight alongside the guards. Kyle deployed portable medical drones that could shield and heal simultaneously. His combination of human improvisation and alien technology gave Zephora's forces an edge they had never experienced before. After the skirmish, the palace guards regarded Kale with new respect. They saw that humans were not weak. Their ingenuity and quick thinking could turn the tide of battle. Leora watched him quietly, pride and curiosity in her expression. Despite the action, the cultural challenge remained. Kale had to attend a traditional ceremony that evening, a bonding ritual marking the start of the marriage pact. The ceremony was symbolic rather than physical, a demonstration of respect, commitment, and protection. He would be judged not only by the ceremony but by how he interacted with Leora during it. Kale stepped into the ceremonial chamber, nerves tight in his chest. The room was illuminated by floating orbs of light, and alien music filled the air, vibrating in ways that made his chest hum. The Zypheran elders observed silently, their expressions unreadable. The ritual began. Kale mirrored Leora's movements as best he could, following instructions whispered by an advisor. At first he stumbled, unsure of gestures or timing, but Leora's gentle guidance helped him regain his rhythm. "You are learning quickly," she whispered, her hand brushing his lightly as they completed a sequence. Kyle nodded, focusing on the task while taking note of the subtleties that would matter later. He realized that understanding Zypheran culture was not about memorizing rules. It was about observing, respecting, and adapting. These were human traits that had helped him survive countless emergencies and now helped him navigate a royal court. After the ritual, The alien king approached. His gaze was piercing yet thoughtful. "Human," he said, "you show respect and courage. You honor the pact not only by action but by understanding. This pleases me." Kyle bowed, feeling a strange mix of relief and pride. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I will continue to honor it, not as a command but as a promise to protect Leora and your people." The king's eyes softened slightly. "Very well, but understand this. The enemies who took my daughter will return if they see weakness. Your courage and loyalty will be tested again. You must prepare, human." Later, in the quiet of her chambers, Leora and Kale spoke openly for the first time. She asked him why humans were often underestimated, and he explained with quiet honesty, "We are fragile, yes, but we survive by thinking, by caring, and by never giving up. That is why you see us as brave now. We have to be." Leora considered his words carefully. "Your world has hardships I cannot imagine, and yet you do not shy from them. That is admirable. Perhaps humans are stronger than we thought." Kale smiled faintly. "And perhaps Zypherans are wiser than I first believed. You value courage, loyalty, and respect. You fight for more than power. You fight for your people. That is why I will fight for you as well." Over the next few days, Kyle trained with the palace guards, learning their tactics while teaching them human techniques. He found ways to integrate human quick thinking with Zyphoran strategy, giving the defenders a new advantage. Leora watched, impressed by his ability to adapt and to turn their differences into strength. Yet the shadow of danger loomed. Reports indicated that the rival faction was regrouping. Kyle understood that this was only the beginning. He would not only have to protect Leora physically, but also help her navigate the dangers of leadership, strategy, and diplomacy. Even as he prepared, Kyle could feel the bond with Leora growing, not just through the pact but through mutual respect and trust. The human healer and the alien princess were becoming allies, and in the process they were challenging the assumptions of both worlds. In the quiet moments, Kale reflected on what he had learned. Zypheran traditions were complex, but they were rooted in loyalty and protection. Humans, though seen as weak, could bring courage, ingenuity, and compassion to any world. Together, he and Leora could form a partnership that transcended culture, species, and expectation. That night, Kyle stood on a balcony overlooking the glowing city. Leora joined him, her hand brushing lightly against his. "Do you think we can face what is coming?" she asked. Kyle looked at her, his gaze steady. "We have already faced the impossible. Together we can face anything." The city below sparkled like a sea of stars, and Kale felt a surge of determination. He had entered an alien world as a healer, but he was becoming more than that. He was a protector, a teacher, and a symbol of what humans could achieve. And somewhere deep inside, Kale knew that this partnership, with trust, respect, and courage, was only the beginning of a journey that could change the fate of Zyphera forever. The night was calm, but Kale knew it would not last. The enemies were still out there, watching and waiting. Yet with Leora by his side and his human ingenuity guiding him, Kyle felt ready. They would face the coming trials not just as rescuer and princess, but as allies, friends, and perhaps in time, something even deeper. The palace of Zyphora had returned to a fragile calm, but Kale could feel the tension lingering in the air. The enemy faction had retreated for now, but scouts reported that they were regrouping, preparing for another assault. Kale knew that their next attack would be bigger and more dangerous. For now, he and Leora had a chance to prepare and to understand each other better. Kale began his days in the palace's medical labs, a vast chamber filled with alien technology that seemed to hum with life. Leora watched him as he moved among the devices, analyzing and experimenting. His human healing skills combined with his ability to improvise fascinated the palace doctors. "You are different from anyone we have known," said one elder healer. "You do not rely solely on technology. You use your mind and your hands in ways we did not imagine possible." Kale smiled. "In my world, we do what works. We think, adapt, and act. That is how we survive." Leora observed him quietly, curiosity shining in her violet eyes. She was intrigued by his methods, how he approached problems not as insurmountable obstacles but as puzzles to solve. She had seen many warriors and leaders in her life, but Kale's strength was different. It came from his heart and mind, not from weapons or rank. One afternoon, as Kale worked on a device that could stabilize wounds even faster, Leora approached him with a cautious smile. "I want to learn," she said. Not just to observe, but to understand your methods. Perhaps combining them with our technology could strengthen the kingdom. Kale looked at her in surprise. You want to be a healer? Not just a healer, she said. A leader who can protect her people in every way possible. I have been trained in strategy and diplomacy, but knowledge of your methods could save lives in ways my army cannot. Kyle nodded. Then we will learn together. For days they worked side by side. Kale taught Leora the principles of human medicine, improvisation, observation, and rapid problem solving. Leora shared her knowledge of Zephoran biology and technology, explaining the unique properties of their healing crystals and energy conduits. Together they experimented, blending human and alien methods to create something neither could achieve alone. During their work, small moments of trust and friendship grew. Leora learned that Kale did not judge her for being a princess, and Kale realized that Leora's intelligence and courage were more impressive than any soldier he had known. They spoke openly about their worlds, sharing stories of hardships, survival, and hope. You humans endure so much, Leora said one evening as they examined a new medical device. And yet you continue to help others even when it puts you at risk. Kale shrugged, a small smile on his face. We do what we must. Protecting others is not a choice, it is who we are. I imagine Zypherans are the same in your own way. Leora nodded. Yes, we value courage and loyalty. But humans, you are different. You inspire hope in ways we do not always understand. Their growing bond was tested when scouts reported unusual activity near the city outskirts. The enemy faction was gathering forces, likely preparing a large-scale attack. Kale and Leora realized that the coming battle would demand more than courage. It would require strategy, coordination, and innovation. Kale suggested a plan. We can use a combination of human tactics and Zypheran technology. Humans think quickly, adapt fast, and use the environment to their advantage. If we integrate that with your energy shields and defense systems, we could surprise them. Leora studied his proposal carefully. It is unconventional. Most of my council will resist. But you may be right. Innovation is our best defense. Together they began training the palace guards. Kale introduced them to new techniques. Rapid repositioning, use of portable shields, and improvisational tactics for emergencies. Leora integrated her knowledge of Zephoran weaponry and terrain, creating simulations that challenged the soldiers to think differently. The soldiers were hesitant at first. Humans were considered fragile and unpredictable. But as Kyle demonstrated the effectiveness of his methods, their doubts began to fade. They learned to trust him, seeing that human ingenuity could complement their own advanced technology. One evening, after a long day of training, Kale and Leora walked through the palace gardens. The air was warm, scented with alien flowers that glowed faintly in the night. They spoke quietly, reflecting on what they had learned from each other. You are more than I expected, Kale, Leora said softly. You are not just brave, you are clever, compassionate, and determined. I think the people of Zephora could learn much from you. Kale shook his head. I am just a healer doing what I must. But I have learned from you as well. You are a remarkable leader. Your people are lucky to have you. There was a brief silence filled with unspoken understanding. Both of them knew that their bond was growing stronger. Not because of tradition or obligation, but because of mutual respect and shared purpose. The calm was shattered the next day when a messenger arrived with urgent news. A small enemy strike team had infiltrated a nearby city district, capturing civilians and threatening destruction. Kale and Leora acted immediately. Kale prepared his medical drones and emergency kits while Leora coordinated a defense team. They moved swiftly, reaching the city in record time. The streets were filled with panic, smoke, and confusion. Civilians ran in all directions, and the enemy strike team had already set traps to slow pursuit. Kale and Leora split their teams. Kale focused on saving lives, using his drones and portable devices to stabilize the wounded and create safe pathways. Leora led a small strike team to disable the traps and confront the enemy forces. Their collaboration was seamless. Kale's human adaptability complemented Leora's strategic command. Together they moved through chaos with precision, saving lives while minimizing harm to the city. Soldiers and civilians alike began to see the strength of their partnership. After the skirmish, Kyle treated the injured in a temporary field clinic. He worked tirelessly, guided by Leora's knowledge of Zephoran biology. They discovered that combining human and alien methods could heal injuries faster and more effectively than either could alone. "You are extraordinary," Leora said as she watched him work. "Not because of strength or skill alone, but because of your heart. You care for every life even when danger surrounds you." Kale looked at her, a small smile on his face. "That is what humans do. We fight for hope, for life, for the chance to make a difference, and now, I fight with you, for your people and for this world." Their bond deepened further when Kale and Leora uncovered an enemy plan to use a bioengineered weapon against the city. The weapon was designed to release a toxic energy that could cripple both humans and Zypherans. Kale analyzed the device and began developing a countermeasure. Leora coordinated the palace labs, providing crucial information about the weapon's energy source. Together, they created a defensive system that neutralized the threat. When the enemy attempted their attack, their weapon failed and the strike team was forced to retreat. The citizens cheered, amazed that a human and a princess had saved them through intelligence and teamwork rather than sheer force alone. That evening, as the city celebrated its safety, Kale and Leora stood together on a balcony overlooking the glowing streets. The people below were no longer afraid, they were inspired. Humans, once considered fragile outsiders, were now seen as courageous and capable allies. "You have changed how they see humans," Leora said softly. "You have shown them what courage and intelligence can accomplish, even in the face of overwhelming odds." Kale nodded. "And you have shown me that leadership is about more than power. It is about protecting, guiding, and inspiring others. Together, we can do more than either of us could alone." In that moment, Kale realized that the bond with Leora was more than a tradition. It was a partnership built on trust, respect, and shared purpose. Their human and Zypheran strengths complemented each other perfectly, forming a force capable of facing whatever challenges lay ahead. But Kale also knew that their work was far from over. The enemy faction was still out there, more determined than ever to capture Leora and assert control. The next battle would test not only their courage but their ability to work as one, blending human ingenuity with alien technology to protect Zephora and its people. As night fell over the palace, Kyle and Leora stood side by side, looking toward the stars. They were ready to face whatever came next, not as rescuer and princess, but as partners, friends, and allies. Together they would prove that courage, compassion, and intelligence could overcome any threat. And somewhere deep in Kale's mind, he felt a growing certainty. Humans, though small and fragile in form, could make a difference in any world. With trust, determination, and ingenuity, they could not only survive, they could inspire hope and change the course of history. For Kale and Leora, the future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. They were stronger together, and their partnership would shape the fate of Zephora in ways no one could yet imagine. The morning sky above Zephora was a strange mix of violet and gold, yet the peace it suggested was an illusion. The enemy faction had gathered far from the city, a massive force determined to claim the kingdom and capture Princess Leora once more. Kale stood on a balcony of the palace, looking out over the defensive lines. Soldiers moved like precise shadows, preparing for the inevitable assault. "You humans think quickly in battle," Leora said beside him. Her eyes were sharp, analyzing every detail of the city and surrounding terrain. "We will need that thinking today." "They will not expect our tactics," Kale nodded. "We combine what we have learned. Quick adaptation, environment advantage, and coordination. That is how we win." The palace had been transformed into a fortress. Walls shimmered with energy shields. Turrets lined the battlements, and medical stations were positioned throughout the city to treat the injured. Kale moved among the guards, showing them ways to combine human improvisation with Zypheran technology. A small portable device he carried could generate protective shields over multiple soldiers at once, something the enemies had never encountered before. Hours passed in tense preparation. Leora coordinated troop positions, ensuring every squad had clear instructions. Kale helped civilians move to safety, using his healing drones as mobile guidance beacons. The city felt alive with urgency, every person understanding that the coming hours could decide their fate. As the enemy approached, their ships darkening the sky, Kyle felt a surge of determination. The human strength was not in physical power alone. It was in adaptability, ingenuity, and compassion. The Zypherans were skilled, but human unpredictability would be their edge. The battle began with a barrage of energy strikes from enemy ships. Walls shook and explosions lit the streets in brilliant violet flashes. Kyle activated his personal shield, protecting himself and nearby soldiers. Leora directed counterattacks, using her knowledge of the city to trap enemy squads in narrow streets where human ingenuity could exploit weaknesses. Kale's medical drones moved through the battlefield, not just healing but also stabilizing structures and clearing debris. Soldiers marveled at his quick thinking, learning to trust the human in their midst. The synergy between Kale and Leora became evident. She led strikes and maneuvers while he ensured every life mattered, every injury treated, every corner secured. At one point, a group of enemy soldiers tried to flank the palace walls. Kale noticed them from above using a holographic map he had improvised. He directed a small squad of Zephyran archers to strategic positions while deploying mobile energy shields in the streets below. The ambush was turned against the attackers, who were trapped and forced to retreat. Leora's strategic brilliance combined with Kale's human improvisation was unstoppable. The citizens began to fight alongside the soldiers, inspired by the courage and coordination they witnessed. Ordinary people moved with confidence, using Kyle's quick tricks and Leora's commands to defend their homes. Hours into the battle, Kale noticed the enemy commander preparing a powerful weapon designed to pierce the city's shields. Without hesitation, he activated a countermeasure he had improvised, a reflective energy barrier that redirected the weapon's energy harmlessly into the sky. The move surprised everyone, including the enemy forces, who were forced to retreat once more. Amid the chaos, Kale and Leora found themselves side by side, moving through the city, coordinating troops and saving lives. They spoke little, trusting each other implicitly. Their partnership was no longer bound by duty alone. It was forged in the fire of shared purpose and courage. Finally, Kale and Leora cornered the enemy commander in a collapsed district. Using strategy and quick thinking, Kale trapped the commander without unnecessary violence. Leora's strike team moved in to secure the area, and the enemy forces were forced to surrender or retreat. The city was saved. Exhausted but unbroken, the citizens of Zephora emerged from their shelters cheering for their heroes. Kale and Leora stood amidst the ruins, battered but victorious, knowing that their combined efforts had changed the course of the battle. Later, in the palace, the alien king formally recognized Kale's contributions. "You have saved not only my daughter but the kingdom itself," he said. "Your courage, ingenuity, and compassion are remarkable. Humans may be small, but your spirit is mighty." Kale bowed, humbly accepting the praise. "I did what any healer would do. We fight to protect life. Today we fought together and we won together." Leora smiled at him, her violet eyes reflecting pride and admiration. "Together we are stronger than we ever imagined." As night fell over the city, Kale and Leora walked through the palace gardens. The stars above glimmered and the kingdom was alive with hope. The bond between human and princess had grown stronger in the crucible of battle, built not only on duty but on mutual respect and shared courage. Kale realized then that this partnership could shape not only the fate of Zephora, but the perception of humans among the stars. They had shown that courage, intelligence, and compassion were universal strengths, capable of inspiring even the most advanced civilizations. The battle was won, but the war for peace and stability was far from over. Kale and Leora knew that the coming days would bring new challenges, yet for now they celebrated victory, knowing they were prepared to face whatever came next, together. The morning after the battle, the palace buzzed with life. Citizens offered gifts and thanks, soldiers shared stories of bravery, and everywhere Kale went, people nodded in respect. He had not only saved the princess and the city, but had changed the way humans were seen on Zephora. Leora approached Kale in the palace courtyard, her violet eyes thoughtful. "The council wishes to discuss the marriage pact," she said gently. "But I want you to know, I trust you. Your actions have proven your intentions." Kyle nodded. The pact was still binding by tradition, yet he felt a deeper understanding growing between them. "I will honor it," he said, "but not as a ruler claiming a subject. I will honor it as a promise to protect you and to respect you, always." The council convened in the grand hall. Kyle stood beside Leora, facing the elders, military leaders, and royal advisors. They spoke in careful terms, Evaluating his loyalty, courage, and understanding of Zephyran law, Kale answered honestly, speaking from the heart rather than rehearsed words. I saved Princess Leora because it was the right thing to do, he said. I respect your traditions and I will uphold them. But the bond we form should be one of mutual respect and choice, not ownership. The council listened intently, impressed by his sincerity and clarity. One elder finally nodded. Perhaps humans are not as we assumed. Your wisdom, courage, and humility have proven valuable. The bond will proceed, but on terms of respect and partnership. You honor both the princess and the kingdom. Leora smiled at Kale, her hand brushing his lightly. That is all I could wish for, she said softly. In the days that followed, Kale and Leora worked together to strengthen the city. He continued to train soldiers, improve medical systems, and integrate human techniques with Zephyran technology. Leora continued to lead her people with insight and compassion, now confident that Kale was not only her protector, but a trusted partner in leadership. Together they visited neighborhoods, speaking with citizens, learning their concerns, and demonstrating that the bond between human and princess was one of cooperation, not command. People began to see hope and inspiration in their actions, realizing that humans, though physically fragile, could be powerful allies through intelligence, courage, and compassion. One evening, after a long day of rebuilding, Kyle and Leora walked through the palace gardens. The soft glow of alien flowers lit their path, and the stars above shimmered with quiet brilliance. They spoke freely, sharing hopes, fears, and dreams. You have changed how I see humans, Leora said softly. Not just your courage, but your heart. You inspire people to believe even when the odds seem impossible. Kyle looked at her, feeling warmth in his chest. And you have shown me that leadership is about more than strategy and power. It is about protecting, guiding, and inspiring others. Together, we can do more than either of us could alone. There was a pause, filled with understanding. Their bond had grown beyond tradition. It was built on trust, respect, and a shared purpose. The marriage pact was no longer just a formality. It had become a promise of partnership, friendship, and perhaps love. The celebration of their victory began the next day. The city streets were filled with music, laughter, and joy. Citizens cheered for their heroes, and Kale and Leora moved among them, sharing smiles, words of encouragement, and guidance. The alien king approached Kale, placing a hand on his shoulder. You have proven yourself worthy not only of the pact, but of the respect of Zephora itself, he said. You are a human, yet your courage and wisdom have made you part of our world. Kale bowed humbly. I did what any healer would do. I fought for life, for hope, and for the people of this kingdom. I am honored to serve. As the sun set, casting golden light over the city, Kale and Leora stood together atop the palace balcony. They watched the citizens below, united and joyful, knowing that the kingdom was safe for now. You and I, Leora said quietly, we are stronger together. Whatever comes next, we will face it side by side. Kale took her hand gently. Together, he agreed. In that moment, Kale realized something